Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome to a special Friday edition of the Arrowhead Addict podcast. I'm Adam Best, joined by producer Richard and a special guest. Here to help me break down the ChiefsAholic Saga is famous bank robber turned author Joe Loya. He'll join us momentarily. But first, we have bills to pay. Hey, Chiefs fans, we have a new offer from FanDuel that you will want to take full advantage of. New customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. All you have to do is click our link in the description to sign up. If you sign up for FanDuel with our link, you will not only have your first bet insured, but you will also be greatly supporting the podcast. So if you're interested in trying FanDuel, click the link below to sign up with us. The offer is available for new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in most legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the description for the offer's full terms. And if you already have a FanDuel account, you can head to arrowheadaddict.com/bets to find more betting offers and ways to support the podcast. Thanks for hanging in there. This is my first time doing that. Glad it's over, to tell you the truth. So let's welcome Joe Loya onto the podcast.
Hey,
Joe,
how you doing, Adam?
my man, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
I didn't think we'd have you back so soon, but I'm glad to see you. You were not lying when you said that ChiefsAholic, aka Xaviar Babudar, would not last long on the run.
Wait, so when did we talk? About 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and he got picked up like a week ago, right? Something like that.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's tough. It's tough. I told you, everyone in prison says it's easy to get over that fence. It's hard to stay away. Like you can escape, but you can't get away.
You told us exactly. So before we start, here's a quick recap of the situation. And this is not going to be a football podcast today. It is about the Kansas City Chiefs. So if you like fun stuff, like talking about bank robbers with a bank robber, stick around. If you don't, well, I'm sorry. We'll have plenty of more football throughout the summer. But Xaviar Babudar, a.k.a. ChiefsAholic, was a ubiquitous Kansas City Chiefs superfan who wore a wolf costume to every single game, both home and away. He also had a large social media presence and was known for making massive sports bets. So last winter, he missed the Texas game in Houston and went dark on Twitter. So that turned up everybody's antenna signals. And it turns out he got arrested for robbing a bank in Tulsa on the way to that game. He ultimately was released on bail, cut his GPS ankle monitor, and went on the run for almost 4 months. He was caught last weekend in California after an intensive FBI investigation. And he was charged for more bank and credit union robberies, 6 successful ones and 2 aborted ones. That's basically where we are at today. He's in custody after this interstate manhunt. There was a FBI special agent in Kansas City who had the whole thing up with about, 4 or 5 other bureaus and the cooperation of law enforcement there in California. So let's dive into some questions, Joe, because
real quick.
Yeah.
You're giving me the update. I have a couple questions because I couldn't find the answer. Maybe you have them.
Yeah.
You said he has been subsequently charged with these 6 and 2 or whatever. So were those that he's charged with those that he is said to have committed before he went on the run? Or are you saying these are ones that they think he robbed while he was on the run?
Robbed before he was arrested in Oklahoma. And we'll get to how they figured out that these
Okay.
unsolved
Yeah. Okay.
robberies were his.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of fascinating. And I think having you on to talk about the differences in the past, I don't know, 30 years or so in technology will be fascinating, but definitely want to take advantage of your expertise. So ChiefsAholic started with a note to a teller. That was his first robbery, walking in, handing them a note, taking the money. And he graduated to vaults and bigger scores. Is this the natural progression for a serial bank robber?
Yeah, my first bank robbery was a note bank robbery too. I wrote about it and I performed it on my show and I performed it. The problem with the note is when you hand them the note, what you're doing is you're taking their attention away from you. And what you want to do is you want to get in there, get the loot, and get out as fast as possible. You don't want anything to slow you down. And if your first one, you really don't know much. You've seen movies, whatever. And so you're trying to perfect your technique. But what you don't realize when you slide the note, immediately you give them something to look down at and no reason to look up. so the woman looked down at, I'm laughing because it's comical now. It could be it's a movie scene, even though it's a very serious thing. And she was traumatized, but she was very clever because she looked down and she wanted to look up. And I realized she has the note. So I grabbed the note and I tried to pull it back and she just pulled it out herself. So we're doing this silly, like tug of war with the note. Right. And then I finally realized she's not going to look up. I'm not getting her attention. So that's when I verbally said, I'm not messing around. And I threatened to get the money. And then she just started giving me the money. That was the last time I tried a note because the note, it's a distraction. It takes too much time. So he probably figured out the same thing. Now, the other thing is, because you want to get in and out, you're trying to get in and out because you don't really know all the things that are working against you. It's the first time you're in a bank or second time you're in a bank, third time you're in a bank. You just know you're trying to get the money, get it out, and leave. And you don't really have a good sense for anything because you're so focused right here. And you're just just trying to make sure that you don't look too nervous and too scared. The more you do it, the more everything opens up for you. And you realize, oh, I can do this. And not only that, once this woman leaned over to give one of the tellers some information while I was robbing this teller, and she realized what was going on. And I was like, oh, yeah, you too, give me the money. So I was able to rob two tellers at once. That is what happens over time, where your vision opens up, time slows down, you become more confident. And eventually you're like, hey, I can get in that vault because all I need to do is get a manager, get back there, because now you have confidence, you have more lay of the land. And like I said, it's like in anything. Like if you're in sports, let's use sports. When you start playing, you're just interested. Like if you go out for a team, you're interested in grabbing the ball. Like when I played football for high school, grab the ball and hit that line. I know I'm supposed to go between the tackle and the guard, and you're just trying to do the simple thing. And you don't really know how. You don't have any savvy for the field yet, because you're just trying to do the one thing. You play over and you keep that play over and you do more and more, and you see the field better. And you can start seeing who's, it just happens. Your eyes become expansive. And that's what, it's like sports or robbery. Your orientation just broadens and you become a little more sophisticated in the reads, right? And so that's what it is to be a bank robber. You start graduating. That's what happened to me. I went to vaults too. So, but this guy was incredibly, I don't think I've ever known anyone in contemporary time who made as much money for robbing as few banks as he did. He wasn't super prolific with bank. I robbed 30 banks. This guy made bank.
Yeah, he was very brazen. And I think part of what you're saying, like sports, like anything else you learn to do, things slow down a little bit.
Exactly.
And he probably figured out, well, hey, the risk is the same whether I'm knocking off a teller or I'm grabbing a manager and taking them to the vault. So if the risk is the same, why don't I go for the upside of the vault?
Exactly.
And that makes sense to me. And I guess once you've accepted the fact that you are a criminal and you're getting in trouble no matter what, once this ride ends, you might as well take it all the way, right?
Plus, you're there for the money. I mean, it's what you like. That's brilliant. The summation you just made. You're going in there to terrorize them to get money, and you're thinking, why don't I just jack it so that I'm jack it up and terrorize them in the vault and get bigger money? It's very simple deduction that way. Now, the challenge here, like I could walk in and walk up to a manager and have him escort me to a vault because nobody knew what was going on. This guy walked in there. I'm a bank robber, like right from the gate. So immediately everyone's up. So he was working with even less time than I had, and he was brazen. I mean, which is, bank robbery is a brazen thing. And if you have the requisite amount of, I don't care, no feel for posterity, meaning like you're not thinking about growing up and his childhood and everything. He was shipwrecked before he was born. He was like just born into that family and homeless, and I just really had it rough, right? So he doesn't have a fear. He wasn't raised thinking, hey, let me make some money, let me invest in school, let me go make some money, let me put in a retirement. Like, we don't think like that. I think I explained that to you.
He's not thinking of his 401k.
Not at all. He doesn't have any feel for the future. And so everything is right now. It's impulse. It's let me spend money. And if you've been poor, then you like to have this money because now you can spend so much money on hotels and easy living. Yeah. And gambling. Apparently he was a gambler. So
20,000 bets here and there, just dabbling. You touched on something. The way you used to go in, correct me if I'm wrong, is you didn't wear a mask. You didn't want to draw attention to yourself before you needed to. But I guess nowadays he thought that was necessary. So he went in a mask, goggles, gloves. They actually used those things when they recovered them to match the photos from these robberies. And you can see them now on screen. What are the advantages of his strategy and the disadvantages?
My disadvantage is obviously he kept all that nonsense. So I remember when I got arrested for bank robbery, I called my brother immediately. I was in the holding cell. I said, go to my my bedroom, go in my closet, and take all the clothes. I was like, especially my trench coat, because there was this famous photo, like iconic photo of me walking out with a trench coat and a suit and everything. But yeah,
it's the one on the cover of your book, right?
Cover on my book, yeah. So I was like, do that, get rid of that. But here's the interesting thing about him here. You can't really tell that it's him. So keeping the gear is what identifies him, and that is such. Okay, so let's just say bank robbery is to succeed at it. You need big balls, and you need to just be brazen. You got to go in there and you got to be fearless. You got to go do the thing. But it does not mean we're smart, and it does mean that we can be smart in certain ways. The way you cat and mouse stuff with cops. But when you're keeping the gear, like I kept the gear, or like me, even like keeping my face. Eventually, once they found me,
well, what are you gonna do? Like a Nick Cage, John Travolta face-off kind of thing? You only have one face, right?
I know So it's just I was gonna get caught, and when I got caught, they were gonna be able to identify me for a bunch of things. But there's a way in which I was able to get away with it, with a little trickery later. But that's a whole other conversation.
I've heard about this. You had like a stunt double who started robbing banks, right?
4 inches shorter than me. I took somebody to rob when I was on bail. I took somebody to rob who used my MO, but when the FBI could see them at the counter, they were 4 inches shorter than me. So when they took the six pack of photos to the women who had just been robbed, they both identified me, and that's why the FBI thought for sure I did. And I was like, I wasn't in that bank. And so they ended up letting that ride. But then what that meant was all these other things that they had, all these other bank robberies they had on me, I had a double out there. And so they had to drop a bunch, and they scrambled and they said, plead guilty to these 3. And I said, okay, I will, out of the 30. But all that to say, this guy actually, the disguise is great. The disguise is great, but he was supposed to get rid of all the stuff when he was done.
Yeah, and he kept, it looked like he switched it up from every bank robbery. He looked different every time, but I've seen him wear goggles like that on his Twitter page at events or whatnot. And what you're saying, I think, is once you do a job in a certain set of gear, burn it, trash it, get rid of it, because it is, at that point, it's evidence.
They link you to it. They're like, hey, look at, because what he's going to say is you can't prove that's me. And there's like, you're right. We can't prove it's your face. We don't have your prints. But anybody who is on a jury, if you want to take it to trial, if you want to be dumb enough to take it to trial, they're going to bring all these things up and identify. And like what they're going to do is they're going to have the gloves there, and then they're going to have the photo, and they're going to have a line from this glove to that hand, this glove to that, and they're just going to show one photo after another, goggles, jackets, whatever. And so those might as well have had fingerprints, might as well have DNA. He's going to be in trouble. He's not going to win that.
Let me interrupt you here, because they did have DNA.
Oh,
and how forensics handled that was they found a few things in the woods. I believe something like a glove in one location, something like a mask in another. And what they did was, does the DNA match?
Okay, because, so you're saying one of the gloves that was used in a crime, he left it behind somewhere?
Yeah, he left a few things in the woods, because there were a few times where he seemed to be frantic. There was another time where there was a dye pack that exploded. We will get to that.
I had that too. That didn't explode.
But he had, so he had left some things behind, and they matched those and at that point they didn't know who the person was, but they knew that the same person did.
They had the DNA. Once they found it, they could match it. Exactly.
And this is how they got him. Was the FBI investigation used historical cellular device location data. And so not only that, like, he happened to be in Iowa or Nebraska in this exact area on this tower minutes within this robbery.
Wait. This is how they, once they captured him and they said, this is our suspect, the DNA matches, then they have his phone because they arrested him. They have his phone. Then they were able to see from his phone where he'd been traveling. This was after the fact. This wasn't how they caught him.
No. Well, I don't know if it's how they caught him or not. They didn't say exactly.
They would have to have his phone to catch him.
Well, that might have been the case, but what they did was, because he had a burner, but it was from, so he didn't have much information when he got it. It was just a T-Mobile, one of those pay-as-you-go phones, which was smart, I think.
Yeah.
But where he made the mistake is when he signed up for Gmail, he left a phone number. At one of the casinos, he left a phone number. And then there were people that knew him. I think notably a young woman he met at a game who got his phone number, and they all corroborated that was his number. And also they had they didn't just have this cell phone at the bank locations. They also had it when he went to the Indianapolis Colts game, when he went to the Arizona Cardinals game. The Chiefs were on the road. So they have this pattern. And that's, that's when he was dead. So I would say, my question to you was, how has advanced technology and forensics made robbing banks harder? Because none of this stuff was really around back in your heyday.
Yeah, no, I was caught with a transparent the money, which was this was in 89. This was a new technology that migrated to.
Is that like No Country for Old Men, that kind of thing? Have you seen that?
Yeah, well, it's really I did see it. I've seen it a bunch. Which one are you talking about? What?
There's a little device.
Okay, something like that. But it was more like a coin, right? And they put in the money, and because I had gone a die pack once, which is just like this, it's almost like it's glued together. You can't bend it. It's like a little brick of money, and because inside is the diodes and the transformer and all this stuff has to be in the money. So they need to carve it out and put it all in there. So it's a thick thing of money. You get excited when you see it, you just put it in the bag. But I realized when I took it home and it didn't explode, and I was able to look at it. I was like, Jesus. So it was thick, and I realized from here on out, I'm going to get money and I'm going to flip it and bend it and see if I can do it. What the transmitter allowed was they put it in the middle of the money, and you could bend it and check the money, and the transmitter stayed in the middle. It was just wrapped with a bunch of rubber bands tight. So I pulled one of those. I was the sixth person in California to get it. And they were able to triangulate, it's like every cop car, if it's the things ahead or if it's on the side or if it's behind you, or let you know, and helicopters had it, and they were able just to figure out where it was. They got me that way. And while I was inside, I remember Timothy McVeigh blew up the Alfred P. Mora building in Oklahoma. And one of the ways they caught him is they used all these ATMs to see what direction he was driving away. And they caught it. They got cameras on the side of buildings, surveillance cameras inside stores, like 7-Elevens, to see people driving by. Like they were just capturing and off ATMs, in fact, cameras off the ATMs. And I'm in prison thinking, man, when we get out to rob, is going to be so crazy to get away with anything. Like this is the point where I'm still a thief. And then you come out now, you have phones, but the biggest issue now, if you're a criminal, is everybody has a camera. So like, not only do you get caught inside from surveillance cameras, anybody in there could surreptitiously be like trying to film you, and then
Right.
and then also, if you're trying to get away and you're running fast your car, like a couple of times I was running fast in my car, people knew something was going on because people down the street are chasing me.
But they didn't have an iPhone to say,
They didn't have an iPhone.
look at this dude.
This now you see that all the time. People can they immediately have it, and so you have to to get away, you have to go through a gauntlet of cameras that aren't only surveillance cameras on surveillance cameras in buildings, or now people have them, and also the technology of what we're talking. I have a friend who he works in defending gang members, and one of the things that always came up is these guys would have phones at the scene of the crime, and they would say, no, I wasn't 400 miles away, that wasn't me. And then their phone 400 miles away that night, they got bing bing from a tower right by there, where they never are, but it's out in the middle of nowhere, right? So the phones give you up. And there's crimes where this one guy, he killed somebody, and he said, I came home, my wife was in the kitchen, I went to the car, and then I came in, she was beat up, somebody bludgeoned her while I was out of the car, and I called the police immediately. Well, it turns out that his Fitbit was tracking his heart rate, how much time. He said, I came in at 4:20, but he actually showed that he had it was tracking him, so it showed he had all these steps at a certain time, and then there was no steps, but his heartbeat went up, and then there was more steps and more steps, and
Oh man,
they were able to track and say, you're a lying sack of shit. You weren't in the house only 5-10 minutes with her. You were in there for a longer time, and there was this moment where your heartbeat went crazy, and that was when he was bludgeoning her. So his own Fitbit gave him up.
Yeah, if you wear a Fitbit to rob somebody, I mean, it's like if in The Fugitive, the one-armed man had a Fitbit, it would have been a 5-minute movie, right?
Yeah, it's a 5-minute movie. But the point is that there's all this technology now. You have to be super, super savvy, because what you want to do ideally is, if you're a criminal, I'm telling you how to do it, but certainly because I write crime stories and I'm making crime shows. And as I think about, like, what do I want to do that's realistic, I'm constantly having the criminals who I want to be semi-intelligent think of how they could use the things that are against them to their advantage. Like, if in fact you rely so heavily on somebody's Fitbit, well, wouldn't it be great if you put your Fitbit on somebody else and had them do all these things? And then when they got it, it showed this other read, and they really believe the Fitbit gives all the answers. And then all of a sudden you have an alibi. So there's digital alibis. I'm actually working on a TV show that I'm creating right now based on people giving people digital alibis. So, but this is where we are now, where this, in this digital age, and with everyone with cameras, committing crimes is outright. You're going to get busted. I mean, you have so much to going against you. You can't be holding on to evidence because
you
just can't.
I think he was cognizant of the phone thing, because that's why he wore mask and whatnot. One of the other craziest things about this story to me is that Xaviar laundered close to $1 million in stolen cash through casinos, which to me takes an incredible amount of hubris. But I guess if you are a bank robber and you're saying you manage warehouses and you're trying to just act like this is business as usual and you're a baller and there's nothing wrong with this, you just go in, do it, act like it's not a problem, right?
This is what got him busted too. Okay, so he spends all his, one of the things he does is he has these cage accounts where, or presumably, I imagine, he goes with his money and says, listen, I got a lot of cash, I don't want to get robbed here. And he goes in, he puts all his cash in that cage, and they give him some chips to play with and stuff. I give him a little limit. And then when he goes to withdraw money, it's cleaned. He gets, he brings back the chips, says, can I get all my money now?
But they probably hand him a check, right? They're not handing him the cash right there.
There's some places that only give you cash. Like if you have
Okay.
an online, like if you're an online gamer, a gambler, and you want to go and cash out, they don't give you a check; they give you cash. So like so yeah. The point is that he's opening up these accounts, and you could keep the money there as long as you want. It's like there's no, you have to check it out at the end of the day kind of thing, right? So he's holding money. The problem with that, and this is how he gets caught. He's near in Lincoln, California, near the Thunder Valley Casino. All they have to do now is go look for casinos that have, because they just have to track them down at casinos. It reminds me of there was these two guys who had kidnapped Steve Wynn's daughter in Las Vegas.
The casino tycoon, right?
The casino tycoon. They kidnap his daughter. And they call him and say, "We know you have access to $3 million. Like right now, you don't have to check with the board. We need $3 million, and bring it the money yourself, and don't fuck around, or we'll kill her." And these are hardcore criminals. They knew what they were doing. They thought about it. They planned it. And you know what? C1's like, don't worry, I'm not calling the cops. And he doesn't. People get pissed off of him later. The cops are pissed, but he doesn't. He said, "But I can't do $3 million. I've already actually taken $1.5 million out of it. I can go bring $1.5 million to you right now in cash." And they're like, "Fine, come on, bring it." He takes it, they get his wife, they give up his daughter. They get the cash, but they do some drop thing. And as they're leaving in a cab, one of them talks about how he was excited to go pick up his Lamborghini, I think, something like that. So these guys get away, clean getaway. Nobody knows where they are. They get on a plane and they leave. Well, they go and they find out the FBI comes and they start their investigation. They talk to this cab driver, pick them up, and he says, "Oh yeah, one of them is going to get a Lamborghini." So what do? They go to all the Lamborghini, all the places where you can buy a Lamborghini in the country, which aren't that many at the time. This was 30 years ago, and they find out that sure enough, somebody plans on picking up a Lamborghini in Newport Beach. So they just wait at Newport Beach on Monday for these guys to come to pick up the Lamborghini because they were talking out of turn, and they identified that they were about the Lamborghini. Well, this guy's about casinos. They're going to bust you if you're staying at the casino. Remember, you guys were talking about what you have to do if you're on the run. You cannot do anything that is your old habits. And this is why we will get caught. Yeah. Because we are not, as much as we are brazen about going and taking stuff is one of the oldest things in the book in human history. Taking things is not novel. Taking things is what human beings, animal kingdom does it all the time. It's called kleptoparasitism. One animal takes down an animal, and then another group of animals come and take that from them. We take things, that's what nature does. So we're not innovators. We're just taking and strong arming and doing what we want. To get away, you have to innovate, which means you have to change all your habits. You have to be utterly uncomfortable. And we're not good at that. Most people are not good at completely changing it, which is why so few people change their lives.
Right. My favorite author growing up was Elmore Leonard, and he always said that he wrote criminals generally kind of naive and stupid because there's no school for crime. If you want to be a lawyer, you go to law school. If you want to be a doctor, you go to medical school. If you want to be...
There's a school for crime. It's prison.
Well, you have to get in trouble first, but yeah.
But you're right. You have the enrollment to enroll. You have to commit a stupid crime. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else, there's sort of a more of an obvious pathway. You want to be a welder or a plumber or whatever vocation.
Some families, there are some crime families that's probably as close as you get, because when you're little, you grow up learning a lot about, being a scofflaw, breaking the law. But yeah, there is no real school for it. In fact, my friend who worked with these gang members and I, worked with him on some of these cases, it's just, we're just knuckleheads, man. We're angry, we're desperate, we're confused, we're really, really full of rage, and we want to act out. And most criminals, I don't know if this guy I don't think was into was he into drugs, or was it just the adrenaline like me? What did they say? I
haven't heard anything about him being into drugs, so I would say
yeah. But the casino thing, right? So this is it.
was he into casinos, or did he watch movies like Hell or High Water where they cleanse the chips, where they kind of launder the money by going in, making some bets, hanging out for a few hours, maybe overnight, you cash the chips back. Maybe he just thought this is the way to do it, but he had so much money. And you mentioned this before. I mean, one job alone was over $300,000. He put some of this after laundering it, and some even before, into a savings account. And this money sometimes is sequential, right? They're tracking this money.
Cash, yeah. So it shows up. Yeah, that's the thing, is like, I mean, he's putting stolen money back into a bank is also risky, because for what you say, they don't have all the money. They don't do all the money. In a group of money, you'll have a bill in the money that they might. But even then, it's hard to track. Fresh money is easy to track. Like when I robbed a vault and it was all these fresh bills, sequential bills, and they were still wrapped in the plastic, and it was 1,000 fives. That was like, and they're, it's pressed together. It's about this big, but those are they know the numbers to all of those, and that's an easy call. But to take it to the bank, that's, I don't know, that's wild. But the thing is, back to what I was saying about the casino. All right, back to your question. Who knows what he watched? Who knows what he watched? But I do know one thing: criminals love to watch crime movies so they can mimic and imitate this, right? And that's why I remember when I was arrested, I had a bunch of DVDs, or not DVDs, videos that I had Heat, and not even Heat, but like Goodfellas, Scarface, all the Godfathers, and all those kinds of movies where you have them because you're like learning how to be. This is whatever.
You didn't get the moral of the story, though. I mean, Tony Montana dies. Like,
no more. We're not. That's not the lesson we're getting.
In Goodfellas, he goes into witness protection, but
what we're looking for is the glamour of it, and we're also looking for the argot, the underworld language, the way to talk, the way to carry yourself, which is why when I went to prison, I started asking my friends which DVD or which things did you have, what did you watch. We all had the same top 10 crime movies, right? We all had them in our thing, and now I feel like, especially bank robbery, there's movies that tell you how some people do it in the movies, and I feel like people are getting ideas about that too. But it's also like Hell or High Water was such a tragic movie.
Yeah,
like it shows this. And one of the things I liked about it, one, it was great, the characters and the acting. But what I loved about it was it gets to this. It gets to me. We're all going to get caught. The FBI has such a great high record of catching, percentage of catching us, right? We're addicted. We become addicted to it. It's easy money. We get to marry our rage with our greed, and we go in there and we get all this money by terrorizing people. And just becomes it's the easiest way to make money. And the other thing about it is, unlike making a lot of money doing drugs, in a drug deal, you have somebody in front of you and somebody behind you. You got to buy it from somebody, and then you got to sell it to somebody. This one is just you and your wits running in there, and your terror. You just run in there, tell people what you want them to do. They give you what you need, and you're gone. And the only person in front of you is somebody who you can boss around and get everything you want from them, because the FBI tells them to give it to you. But that's another reason why some guys like us do this. But then we're destined to be caught, because that's our hit. That's our thing.
Yeah.
And I told you, they know it. They know it. And that's easy. The other thing too, this story is not just a bank robbery story. This is a escape story. This is a story of like trying to get away, being a fugitive. Fuck, it sucks. It's hard. It's not glamorous. And then you end up doing what he did, hanging out at casinos. It was only a matter of time. How did he get? Do we know how he got arrested? Did somebody give him up, or how did that happen?
I read the 31-page FBI dossier, and I still do not know exactly what led to his what precisely led to his arrest, I want to touch on, I really like Hell or High Water too. And what I like about it is it doesn't condone this behavior. In fact, I think it looks down on it. But what it does do is it takes a look at the human condition and the desperation, the economic desperation, the just lack of potential avenues that cause people to turn to this lifestyle.
Absolutely.
And again, it's not condoning it,
No.
but it does showcase how you could get in the set or situation where you would even consider something like this. Because today I was thinking about this podcast we're going to do today, and I drove by a credit union here in Alabama, and I just thought, I would never do this. I could never walk into that bank and have a gun and risk the rest of my future. I've never considered it for a moment in my life, even though I've seen all the movies and everything. But that's because my situation was good enough where I never even had to consider that.
You can't fathom that. Well, yeah. I mean, Hell or High Water is a good movie for a bunch of reasons, but one of them too is that it demonstrates or personifies that what I'm telling you is like the one brother who had been in prison, who was the really troubled guy. He had no feel for the future. He didn't care. Let's just go do this, and any danger element of it, he thrived on. I had a friend when I was in prison, my best friend, my road dog, and we were there, and they were talking. I was talking about, when we get out, let's go rob banks. I'll take you with me. We can really make a lot of money. And he was one of those prisoners and one of those guys who, when I say no feel for posterity, he personified that. He didn't care at all about a future life, not at all. So his thing was, he just wanted to live for the adrenaline rush of life. So I'm telling him, here's what we'll do. We'll do these things. And then he's like, hey, we could do too. Like, we can make it so that, and my motorcycle, the cops get close and then we get away. I'm like, no, what are you thinking about? We don't want them anywhere near us. But he loved the danger element, the risk, the adrenaline, and he wanted them near us. And this is one of the things that the movie also shows, how clumsy robberies are. Like, we're accustomed to, but he did that too. Like, things can go awry quick.
They're not always slick, right?
They are trying to make them slick, and so they're not. Most of the time, there's a lot of clumsiness. You're lucky a lot of times to get away with the things you get away. I had an exploding dye pack, blew up on me, not up on me, it blew out of my hands, and when I went and reached down for it, the tear gas also hit me, but I was able to grab it, put it in a bag, and take off, and then throw it in a sports bag in the back of my car and take off. And I didn't go blind, but I was almost blinded by that tear gas. That's a great scene in a movie. It's totally
Right.
cinematic, but it also shows that as lucky as I was in terms of numbers to get to 30 banks, many of those banks I almost didn't make. I almost got caught for a lot of goofy, clumsy things that happened like that. So that's what I liked about Hell or High Water. They were not always slick bank. They were just barely getting away by the skin of their teeth. And but also, like you said, the tragedy of the people who do this. For the most part, people who rob banks are drug addicts, or they have problems with substances, and so they are typically robbing to go get drugs, so to subsidize their habit. They need the money to subsidize their habit. And these people who are robbing this way, they urgently have to get it. So they might have antenna that say this might be dangerous, but they have to do it because they're in their mind, they're doing the calculus. I got to get this money, then I got to go cop, then I got to go get a room, and then I got like whatever.
They're not clear-headed, right?
They're not clear-headed.
Whereas maybe
desperate, even more desperate.
Yeah, this guy can at least see a lot of the angles. I mean, if you are addicted to some kind of hardcore substance, you're going to be impaired during what is already, it seems like one of these scenarios where you have an adrenaline dump. There's countless things that could happen that you wouldn't even consider before you start doing it. I just can't even imagine. We're going to talk about your dye pack, but before you do, we need a short advertiser break. Hey, addicts, you want to get swagged out? Well, we've got you covered. The Arrowhead Addict merch store is live, and you can visit right now by clicking the link in the description below. We've got everything from shirts to hoodies to baby onesies, and even a sweet pint glass to you to drink. Our good friends at KC Beer, perfect receptacle for the best beer in Kansas City. But hey, that's not all. We've also got a promo code for this week's listeners. Use code ADDICT15 to get 15% off your order today. And make sure to use that fast because it will expire by Sunday. So rep our pod. We need all the help we can get to get out there and save a bit of money while you do it. We truly appreciate you guys. Definitely do. Let's get back into it, Joe. Thanks for your patience there.
Yes, no worries.
So ChiefsAholic stole 170 grand in Omaha. And then when he was running in the woods, he had a dye pack explode, red ink everywhere. And he had to leave it. They found the money. Authorities found the money in the woods. It was obviously tainted. I want to hear more about that because you're right. It does sound extremely cinematic. And we hear about dye packs a lot in movies and TV shows, but we haven't seen that a lot.
Yeah, so let's just start with the dye pack. I'll describe it a little bit better this time. The dye pack is a little PC board, and you have diodes and resistors in it connected to a little tiny transformer, and then 2 sacks there of tear gas and also the dye. And then when you get 20 feet out of the bank, boom, it blows up. Mine, I grabbed and put it into a backpack. So when I stepped out,
is that because you saw it when you were in the bank? You noticed
it? I would put my backpack on the counter, and they would give me the money. I would just slide it right in, right? Okay. And so then I zip it up, walk out, and you know what backpacks and material they're made out of. You know that I don't even know what it is, but
is it nylon or
like durable, like is that nylon or whatever? All the different things they put in it, but it's the synthetic fabric and it's pretty durable, but. It blew a hole in it like that. Damn. It just blew out of my hands. And at first I thought somebody shot at it. And when it fell to the pavement in the middle of the street, I looked down and there's this big plume of red smoke coming out of that big hole in it. Now, there was a guy when I was in prison, I heard about this. He gets a dye pack and he shoves it, or he gets the money and he shoves it in down the front of his pants. And when he gets out of the bank, it blows off his left nut, right?
Oh,
so I know. So when he finally wakes up in the hospital and he's like, sorry, man, you lost your testicle. He sues the bank. He sued the bank for this dye pack. Anyway, that's a whole other story. It's a crazy story.
I'm guessing he did not win that lawsuit.
No, he did not. He was the loser anyways. But in this regard, the dye pack, I realize when I see the smoke is, oh shit, dye pack. That's the smoke coming out of it. And then I reach down for it because when I hear dye pack, we all hear dye pack. We never hear tear gas. So I had no clue there's also tear gas here. So when I reach down to get it, boom, I'm just, like I said, but my cat-like reflexes saved me so that I was able to get away without it like taking a real intense, but I took enough. So my eyes are blinking, right? But I have enough wherewithal.
That could blow fingers off, right?
What?
That could blow fingers off if your hand was right there.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're holding it, yeah, absolutely. So I grabbed the bag because it was in the bag. You see, the reason he had to leave it behind is because it was, I don't know, who knows where he had it, but he didn't want, like me, I didn't mind carrying it and running down the street to my car, a block away. I didn't mind running with it with a big plume of smoke behind me because I knew I was going to get to my car, get away, but I didn't want to leave it behind because I thought fingerprints. So I leave, put it, like I said, get to my car, open the trunk, grab a big sports bag, throw it in the sports bag, zip it up, close it, and then get in the car and drive away. He leaves it behind for the reason I didn't leave it behind. He left it behind and he leaves fingerprints on it. Or you're saying he left fingerprints on it?
No, he wore a glove. He wore gloves each time. But what he did over these various...
He left a glove.
He left a glove and he left a ski mask. And it might have just been a couple things, but they matched the DNA. So it was one of the things that helped them establish that pattern. Yeah. And this dye pack situation obviously pissed him off because in November, I forget which bank it was, but he told the employees, if you give me a dye pack, I will come back and put a hole in your head.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not only did he kind of learn on the job, he got more intense because at the end, there was also another situation where he actually put a firearm to an employee's ribs. So I think I don't know if it's his confidence, his arrogance, his rage. Things just kind of escalated as these incidents went along.
Remember too, what I was telling you earlier is, as things evolve and you realize I'm here to do one thing, to get the money. And what happens is you realize there's different techniques you can use to make people give it to you faster. Like when I put a note down, I delayed it because I allowed her to look down at it and not have to look up. And so the same thing goes the other way. The better you get at this, you realize I don't really have to say much if I just put a gun in her ribs. There's no language that will supersede a gun in the ribs in terms of like getting someone's attention and also demonstrating you're serious. Like if I'm there and I had to threaten, I had to use language, and then I also had to continue to cajole, like, don't fuck around. I told you I'm not messing around. Like I had to keep her.
Is there some kind of balance to that? Because I'd figure if you're too meek, you won't be credible. But if you're too out of control, you might escalate something. So, especially in the age of open carry, right? You don't want some hero to pull out his Glock and take you out right there.
That's happened. I was two things. The person that when I was on bail, I had somebody rob, and I gave him my MO. But the first time I took him to a bank, he runs in the bank, and then he comes running out, and he comes to the car, and we take off. And he's all excited. He's all breathing heavy. Not excited. He's breathing heavy, and it's a getaway. And I know this getaway. I've been doing them. I know these banks. And we finally get away, and I'm like, how much you get? He said, I didn't get anything. She told me no.
Oh, man.
I was so angry because I had respected this person a little bit when I was younger. They weren't much older than me, but they had been, super athletic and sort of like for high school had been violent and stuff. So I actually had once been afraid of this person. And now this person comes out of the bank and they told him no. That's meek, right? So I told him, I said, listen, this is what you have to do. You have to go in there. Like if these people in that bank went to your house last night where you were asleep, they walked upstairs, they got your pants hanging over the chair, they took it off, they grabbed your wallet, and they took all your money. That money in there is yours. You fucking go and take that money, and you have all moral authority on your side. They got your money. And he's like, that was my pump up to him, right? And so years later, when I'm working and consulting on Baby Driver, based on that situation, there's a point where Jamie Foxx, they're all getting ready to go in the bank, and that's his pep talk. He's like, because I worked with Edgar on this, because I was so angry and so disappointed that he had no nuts enough to bring any kind of intensity or anything to it. Like, how do you go rob a bank? Like, I don't know what he did, but they told him no. They're like, we don't take you seriously. He didn't have a gun, none of that stuff, and he didn't know how to do it. So,
well, it's kind of, you mentioned Jamie Foxx. It's kind of acting in a way.
It's performance, and this is what I'm telling you. He figured out. Bubakar, what's his name? I'm sorry, it's our guy. What's his last name? Babudar. He figured out putting a gun to somebody's ribs, gives them clarity, instant clarity. That one, you're serious, and two, they're in danger, and three, they better give it up quick. They got to just do it fast, and they will. At that point, you turn good people, and I hate to say it, this is what, one of my regrets. You turn, and this is what I intended to do, so that's why I'm talking about it. I intended to turn people into automatons who just now follow my orders. Don't give me pushback. Give me the big bills first, and that kind of thing. Open the drawer, like that kind of thing. And that's what he was doing. He was just doing that. And that's the thing about this kinds of crime. Again, not glorifying it, because it's really humans treating other other humans terribly to get what we want for our own selfish needs. But to do this job, you have to turn people into chess pieces. You have to turn them completely into abstractions. Like, you don't care that they have family at home. You
You
don't care that everyone
dehumanize
loves
them,
them.
right?
Totally dehumanize them, because all you need is for them to move here to there, and then you get the money and you leave. And so, how do you move these chess pieces most quickly? It turns out in the world, and this is just one of the sad facts, is people respond to violence. People respond to a lot of things, like even when I came out and changed my life, and I never wanted people organize their life around my moods ever again. It was one of my big regrets. I told you last time. It was the only time that I cried in my podcast was when they interviewed one of the women that I had robbed. I felt so terrible. It's one of the biggest regrets I had when I changed my life. So, I feel really terrible about that. That said, I was saying something. I'm sorry. I was saying something about turning them into automatons. Oh, so you go in there, and you have to make them do what you want. And yeah, I guess I said already.
Your friend, I want to hit on that really quick, because I think most of us would have done the same thing. I mean, when you're a young person,
would have done what?
well, when you're a young person, going up and asking a guy or a girl out, I mean, that takes courage.
Yeah.
A lot of us are scared to do that, and we don't do that with much confidence. When you're going into a bank, presumably with a weapon, but if he didn't have a weapon, he had to be even more forceful.
Yeah,
And he just didn't have it in him. And at the time, you saw that as meekness, but wasn't he just maybe too well adjusted for this?
That's what
this
I was
line of
going to
work?
say. That's what I'm going to say is, like, that's exactly right. He didn't have the performance component of it, and he just didn't. There was 2 robberies, and I was like, okay, this.
So you have to be a little bit of a De Niro, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you have to be a De Niro, and you have to be, you have to have. You just got to be a performer. You have to have desperation, and
You mentioned rage a lot. You
yeah,
said
rage
something
is a
like
big part.
requisite
Rage is a big
rage,
component
right?
of it. Yeah, because like someone who's been poor and maybe raised around a lot of people who have money, it mocks you. Your poverty mocks you, and so you grow up with all these insecurities about being poor. And so when you grow up angry at the system, at the world, at the universe for giving you these pathetic parents, whatever, you have this rage now, and it coalesces, and you realize, I want what they have. And if you covet what they have, as opposed to envy, a lot of people have envy. Oh, I wish I could have a nice car. I wish I could have, and they go out and get it. They work hard. They get a car. They get a house, whatever. But covet is, I like what you have, and I want what you have right there. Not envy, which is, oh, you have a nice house. I wish I had a nice house. Covet is, I want your house. I want your car. It's really nice. You're enjoying it. I want what you have. And we end up becoming covetousness. Like, we end up coveting these things. We want money. We want to go get the money that somebody has. It's not ours. We want to go take it. And so a lot of people start off this. I'd be interested to find out what little crimes he started off to get to where he is. Nobody just goes straight to bank robbery.
Yeah, he has a sheet. He has a sheet, and my understanding of the situation was that his mother was a thief, like a petty thief, and she kind of brought him and his brother up to kind of join the family business, for lack of a better way to say it. So I don't know if he ever really had a choice. Again, I'm not condoning this. He took it to 10 more levels, not just one, but he was kind of, as a teenager, it seems, forced into this line of work. And I want to look at him as a criminal and get your opinion, kind of as a way to wrap all this up. So ChiefsAholic aborted a robbery because there was nothing but low denomination bills in the vault. That seems smart to me. He also stole over $300,000 during another heist. That seems impressive to me. But the time he got busted, he went in to do the Tulsa job. He had a fucking BB gun, and then he tried to escape on a bicycle, and they got him on the bicycle. That seems dumb to me. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. So is this a smart criminal who slipped up, or a dumb criminal who got lucky, or somewhere in between?
No, it's not. It's just like, so just look at it this way, right? He's a human. like a lot of us have really great intelligence in certain areas of our life and very savvy, and we can achieve all these successes in sports and at work and this and that. But when it comes to interpersonal relationships, we suck. Or the opposite, we might be really good at interpersonal relation, family, but we suck in terms of finances and work, and we're always poor. Like people are wobbly like that. There's no like we have this idea that if you're really we grow cohesively. I don't think that's how it is. I think it's like, remember the old stereos where you would play stereos, and there would be all these things, these lines moving up for different types of sound. All these, it would just
like the equalizer or whatever, right?
Right? And it's just you just see them all going as you're playing the music, and none of them are the. It's not doing this. It's just that, and I feel like that's how we are in terms of our skill sets. Like a lot of us, we have high skill sets and then low skill sets, and so he was good at being able to go and do the thing, which is go in, get the thing, get it done, persuade them, get the money, get out. He was dumb at the after part. Like I said, I've known guys who got out of prison, slipped under the gate, whatever, they go down the road and they're busted. They spent all this great time to get out of the prison, and they had no escape plan, how to get away from it. And so they're just walking down the street like, oh, I got away. I left the prison. So savvy and ballsy to do the thing, but not the after, like not thinking it through afterwards. And so there's also this element of, if you don't care, and if you also have great confidence in your ability to do things, you hype yourself into thinking, I'll figure it out. Because inside you're figuring things out, and you're doing the dance, and you're getting away with all this money. You have confidence, like I can figure things out. When you get on a bike, it limits the things that you can do to figure shit out. Like you can't go way fast or whatever, right?
I know you used to say that you would park a little ways away, because you were kind of fast when you were young, right?
Yeah,
so you could just book ass to your car, and you'd be far enough where nobody could see the license plate. And I'm thinking maybe that's what he was doing, but I don't know. It seems like it would have been better for him just to be on foot.
Yeah, man. So he's another bank robber who realized, like Willie, what's the name? The guy who said, they asked him, why'd you rob banks? That's where the money is. He figured out what we all figure out. There's a lot of money there. They're able to give. He heard what I heard, which is they have to give up the money. So you go in there and you do it. But our lives conspire against us, and our imaginations about how invincible we are, whatever. I did 30, I still got busted. I should have quit earlier. And people are like, why didn't you? Like, I didn't care. And I trusted I would get away with it, and I just didn't care. And you try not to think about the future, because then he
had $1 million. That's a lot of money,
and you know what? He's going to go to prison. He's going to be looked up to, because bank robbery is a still respectable crime in there. Because it's violent and you were getting money, but he's also going to be dogged. They will laugh at him for this exact reason. A bike, like you were riding a bike, and
a BB gun, and it seemed like he almost kind of devolved or something, because it's before that he was sort of on the upswing. He went from a note to a teller to the vault to bigger amounts, to being more forceful with his weapon and his words, to his last job. He just kind of fumbles the bag, literally.
Yeah, no kidding. But also, I think there's a lot of things that could be at play that we're not aware of. For example, to me, what it feels like, is that he was in a desperate place, and he was like, I need to do this bank robbery, but he wasn't prepared. He didn't have all the things he had before. And like, remember I told you, like somebody who was using drugs, like, they have to go do this thing, and so they don't prepare for it. They don't do, they don't survey around, see if there's a cop having a donut around the corner. They don't care. They just got to go in, and because they're desperate. And it could have been that the circumstance he was in, I'm not saying the drugs, but I'm just saying circumstances he was in, he felt like, I need to go subsidize his money. He's losing money. Who knows where the money was, or what he felt. But wouldn't it be something story-wise if somebody told him to go rob this bank, they found out what he was doing, and this would be a great story if somebody says, now I know you're a bank robber, you got to go rob this for me. And he was just panicked and he just fucking did it. And that was it. Like, that's what I would make of that, is that not that somebody made him do it, but it wasn't his normal modus operandi. He wasn't as prepared. He didn't have a gun with him. So he gets a BB gun, like whatever.
I just listen to all this and think about a year, maybe longer, because there could still be unsolved robberies out there. This just wore on him, the stress, the anxiety, having to live a double life, because he really did. He was this super fan character who claimed to have worked hard in college, worked his way up to be a warehouse manager, which was complete bullshit. He had a very scarce work history, income history, but keeping that up and going through this time and time again, I think it would just wear you down a little bit.
Also, he's living a lie, like not a double life, a triple life, because he has to lie to everybody about, not that he can't tell anyone he's a criminal, they're robbing banks, but he also can't tell anyone who he really is, which is he doesn't have that narrative. He wasn't a guy who went to college. He didn't have a job. He didn't have these warehouses. He's a fake. And so because he's a fraud, it's conceivable that him being a fraud, he needed to go do something that was significant. So at least he could tell himself, hey, I'm not just a low-level fraud anymore. Certainly that's what happened to me. I was tired of being a petty criminal. I felt like I'm bigger than this. I stabbed my dad and tried to kill him at 16. I got heart. I'm big. I'm brave. Why am I doing petty crime?
In fairness to you, because our audience doesn't know this was after you took the beating of a lifetime, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was beaten as a kid. And so at 16, he was beating me. He beat me really, really bad. I mean, the county took us away from him. And I had a concussion, broken bone. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, I mean, I was defending myself. And he lived. I did it. But the point I'm saying is I still had the balls to get up and do something like that. And I knew that I was bigger than this little narrative I had. So he has this life of he's a fraud. He's presenting himself as being something he's not. And so it bothers him. So of course he's like, and how can I dial up my sense of self? And he goes to rob these banks. But like you're saying, after a while, yeah, he's robbing the banks and he feels great. And he's getting all this respect as a ChiefsAholic. He's got, all these people following him and he's got that. But at the end of the night, he has to stick with himself. And he knows he's about nothing. He knows he's a lie. He knows all this stuff's manufactured. That, as much as just holding up this life and the intensity of being a thief, that alone crushes people. It's hard to live with yourself. And he could have just been like, whatever,
In a perverse way, he kind of got what he was looking for, though. He got its notoriety. It may be of the infamy kind, but he got that notoriety. I mean, he's a punchline at the ESPYs. He's in the New York Times. He is a high-profile person now, and he's going to be in prison for quite some time, probably a decade, right? So if he ever watches this, what would your advice be to him on what to do now, how to turn around his life?
One thing I want to say about what you just said, and then I'll answer your question. We can close it up. Yep. Is he gets to go in there saying, I was in the New York Times. I wasn't even in the New York Times. That's a huge deal. Like, he gets to go in there with narrative power. And also he did what I did. He created a cinematic life. This is going to be a movie one day, if not a book. And depending where he is in the feds, I was able to get out and write my memoir and do whatever I want with the memoir. It's going to be a TV show. It might be a movie one day. It's going to be all that. He has that now. He made that life for himself. Now he's going to get caught up in all the bullshit of prison, because he's going to go to a maximum security prison. He's committed several crimes. He's escaped. Now his numbers go up. Even though he didn't do serious crime before, they're going to want to put him behind a wall or behind a couple fences, which is maximum security penitentiary. And he's going to be there with the big boys now. Now, I don't care what kind of crime his mother hipped him to. If he hasn't been in prison before on the feds, and he hasn't done time with serious criminals there, he's going to do time with every mafioso. Every mafia is going to have their guys in his prison he goes to. And those guys are serious criminals. By that, I mean they're serious organized criminals. And they got a posse, and he's by himself. And so He's going to have to find a way to keep his head down and now value the future he will one day have. He's young enough so that they're not going to wash him up precisely because he has no big extensive criminal record with this kind of stuff. He's going to probably get, I don't know, I'd say under 20 years, which means he'll end up doing 15. He can come out again and he can experience a lot of great things between now and then. If he changes his life, if he sticks to books, goes to school and college in there, some place will have college. If he reads up, studies, if he changes his life, just does meditation and yoga, do whatever, Buddhism, find God, whatever, changes his life, he can be a real instrument. His narrative now gives him scope so he can influence a lot of people in a positive way because he now has a story to go tell people that will capture him, and then they'll listen to him saying, but here's what it was empty. I was spending all this cash, I was going to all these places, and it sounds romantic and it sounds great, but look where I ended up. Yeah, he's got a great opportunity if he puts his nose down, avoids all the nonsense, tries to stay straight. He could turn this into something interesting for himself and his family.
I mean, you're the model of what he could do, because not only did you use your story and your storytelling ability to write a book and create opportunities for you, but you've become an advocate. And as someone who's an ex-criminal who had a hard upbringing, you have credibility when you talk to young people who are in a similar situation. So hopefully this is a wake-up call, and he still has time to turn his life around. Again, guys, this is fun to talk about, but bank robbing is not a victimless crime. Just want to reiterate that before we get you guys out of here. One last question on a lighter note. Dying to know this. So you consulted on and cameoed in Baby Driver. Love the movie. What was your getaway song? Or did you have multiple getaway songs? I've thought about that.
So when I after the first bank robbery going away, I was like, man, I need a getaway song. So I went home and I looked, there's a video on my website, joeloya.ltd. There's a video where I talk about this, and I go through all the songs that I look, or all the bands and songs, and I landed on Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson. So I go to the second bank robbery. I put in, this is when I had like a 10-disc CD player in my car. So I punch in the song when I'm getting away.
What year would this have been, you think?
89.
Okay.
88. So this is Smooth Criminal comes on. I realize he's like, it's the ballad of Annie's rapist or murderer. It's like, it has nothing to do with a pristine getaway. So I like pop it off like, wait, what? And as I came in through the window, Annie, are you okay? Like, it's just bullshit. It's like not the song for a criminal who's making a pristine getaway. So I went home and I did it again. And I looked at all these songs. I ended up with Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd. That was my getaway song for the next, 20 something bank robberies. Yeah.
Wow. I think that movie is used in The Departed.
Or the music?
Yeah, I think Comfortably Numb is in The Departed. Another great crime movie.
Yeah. Baby Driver was a fun movie to be involved with. It was fun to be on set when Jamie Foxx shot me. And Edgar Wright, such a brilliant director, so fun to work with. Yeah. And then when I saw it, it was, even though I had worked on talking about the script and reading the script all along the way Edgar made that and the way it opened, wow.
Yeah, he's an
Whoever hasn't seen it, I recommend you see this. It's one of the best heist movie openings ever.
I would describe Edgar Wright as a highly inventive filmmaker. He really uses the medium in terms of transitions and music and clever camera work and special effects to the max. So definitely recommend that. Well, guys, we have a weekend to get to. Love having Joe on. If more information comes out, I hope we're done. I hope no other people got terrorized, and this was only 8 robberies instead of 20 or 30 like you did. But until then, this is the Arrowhead Addict podcast. For Richard and Joe, I'm signing off as Adam. Go Chiefs.
Take care.